I'm Ashley Wallace. I own a wedding and event floral design business called The Tallest Tulip. And I love flowers, and wedding and events are our bread and butter, but we have so much fun teaching people how to make flower arrangements. It's a really fun hobby and something that you can do at home. So my goal today is to teach you how to make a flower arrangement out of really common flowers that you can find at the grocery store. The last two workshops, we've made kind of a garden style asymmetrical arrangement. Here was the first one that we did on Friday, and I just posted the one that we did today on Instagram earlier this morning, but I thought I would change it up a little bit and do something with hydrangea. Hydrangea is this flower right here. And people have a love-hate relationship with hydrangea, I feel like. They love the flower, but it's really finicky and it can be hard to work with and hard to care for. So I wanted to bring in some hydrangea for this class and give you some tips and tricks on what you can do with this flower. We'll be creating a centerpiece or a table arrangement or arrangement that you can give to somebody as a gift that you can create using flowers that you can buy at the store and turning it into something that looks like it was designed by professional florists. It's really stylish and looks very professionally put together. So Charlie has the supply list for this workshop, and he will pop that up on the screen. So these are tools that you can find at any craft store, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. The first thing that we need is a pair of clippers. I use floral clippers because they're really sharp and they give us a nice clean cut on our flower stems, but you can use kitchen scissors if you don't want to invest in clippers. So these run about 10, 15 bucks. We also need some wet floral foam, which this is a brick of wet floral foam. The brand is Oasis, and you can buy this at Hobby Lobby, Michael's. You can order it on Amazon. You want to make sure that you grab wet floral foam as opposed to dry. Dry floral foam is used for silk flowers to hold them in place, but this wet foam, I'll show you how to soak it, and this is going to be the water source for our arrangement. We've got our foam. And you need a container. So for most of the designs that I do, I like to use containers that are not clear glass. When you use clear glass, you have to pay attention to what's going on in the water, and the stems can look messy, and if the water gets gunky, it turns really ugly. So I like to use a solid color vessel for our arrangement. So we've got our vase here. When you're picking a container, you want to pay attention to the size. So this one is about 4.5, 5 inches tall. Your container is going to be a third of the size of your overall design. So if my container is this height, my flowers are going to be about 2/3, the rest of the 2/3 of the design height. So if you have a container that's really tall, you're going to have a really tall arrangement. You're not going to want your container to come here and your flowers to only come to about here. So make sure when you're picking a vessel that you pick something size ratio wise that's going to be about 1/3 of the size of your overall design. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is soak our foam. So I'm going to hold my foam up to my container and I'm going to cut it in order to fit inside the opening of this vessel. So I'm just taking a kitchen knife and I'm going to cut it into a little bit over 1/3 of the size to get started, and we'll see if that works. I have a pitcher of water here, but you can use anything to soak your foam as long as the foam will be completely submerged. So if I'm at home, I usually stop up my sink and fill my sink with water and soak my foam. You can use a bucket or a large bowl, but we're just going to take the foam and drop it in. And we're going to let it sink. When it sinks on its own, as opposed to us pushing it down in the water, you don't want to do that. We want to let it sink because when we do that, all of the little nooks and crannies of the foam fill with water. And this is going to be the water source for our floral design. So we want to make sure that it's completely hydrated and saturated before we pull it out. So it takes a few minutes for it to sink. So we're just going to wait while it's hydrated.
I actually have a question, and I'd like to take a second and say if anyone has any questions, please make sure to click on the chat button and ask your questions in the chat window. But I have a question myself. So if I cut a foam block and I put it in the water, how much does it expand as it soaks up the water?
The foam itself doesn't expand at all. It will stay the same size as it was before you put it in. It's designed so that it soaks up water without expanding at all. So you don't need to worry about the size changing as it soaks up water. And
Gotcha.
you can cut it down after it's hydrated. So, and that's actually what we'll do. It's almost done. You can see the top of it filling in with water. And when all of that light green is gone, that means that it's ready to go. So I'm just going to use a brick tray to set it on, but you can set it on a plate or a cookie sheet when it's wet. And we're going to cut it to make sure it will fit. So I actually got this about the right size, but I'm going to just shave off the edges so that it fits down in there nicely. Okay. I'm going to cut the top off so that it's flush with my container. So I need to cut off about ½ inch. And there we go. Just pop your foam into the container. Okay. So we'll put this aside for now. But what you need to do next is take your bouquet of flowers from the store. What I'm going to use today does have hydrangea in it, but this technique will apply for any bouquet of flowers that you buy. I just wanted to show you hydrangea because it's such a common flower that I get questions about. But you'll go ahead and take the wrapping off of your bouquet and cut the rubber band off, and we're going to separate everything out. So I'm going to set my hydrangea aside. I've got some spray roses. So these are a filler flower. Your filler flower in your grocery store bouquets oftentimes is alstroemeria or daisies or a cushion palm. Anything that has multiple blooms per stem is a really great filler flower. We want to make sure that we select a bouquet from the store that has a variety of shapes and sizes of blooms and color as well. So we want to find something that's got small blooms, round blooms, spray blooms, which is multiple blooms per stem. And any bouquet that's kind of that $15 to $30 range should be sufficient, and you should be able to create something like this. So my next flower, I've got a couple of roses here, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks with roses as well. I'm going to separate those out. And then the rest of my material is greenery. It's important to select something that has greenery included with the flowers. I know that some stores, my H-E-B here, has a separate greenery bundle that you can buy, I think for $10, that comes with a variety of greens, eucalyptus varieties, some other kind of more traditional greens like leatherleaf or lemon tips are great to use. And then I've got some wax flower here. This is what I like to use instead of baby's breath. I like wax flower better than baby's breath, but either one is fine. So hydrangea. Hydrangea is a timeless flower. It is a great bloom because you get a lot of bang for your buck with hydrangea. I know at H-E-B you can buy a bundle of, I think, 3 hydrangeas for $5, but it's really finicky. One thing to note about hydrangea is that it drinks through its petals in addition to drinking through its stem. So the first thing that you want to do when you get hydrangea home from the store is you want to spray the head with water. So we keep this here in our studio. We have it labeled so we don't spray flower food all over our hydrangea. But H2O, give your hydrangea a good spray of water. And it's going to drink through its petals. Another thing that you want to do with hydrangea is any of the leaves that you have on the stem itself, you want to pluck those off. That prevents water from getting to the head of the flower, and instead it'll go to the leaves. You know, hydrangea leaves are really large and dense, so pluck those leaves off. The next thing that you want to do with your hydrangea is all florals, all stems should be cut at a really severe angle, but hydrangea is particularly important to cut because the stem is so large, and when you cut it at an angle like this, you have the most surface area possible exposed to the water source. So cut your hydrangea stem at an angle, and a lot of times we'll even cut another snip in our stem to give a little bit more exposure to the water source. And then this is a spice. It's called alum, A-U-A-L-U-M. You can buy it at the grocery store on the spice aisle. There's something special about alum. I don't know why, but I learned this when I went to floral design school. You can dip the stem in alum, and it is going to extend the life of your hydrangea tremendously by days. So I'm just going to open up my alum here, and we keep this in the studio, and just stick your stem in the alum. And all you need is just a sprinkling of it where you've cut it. And this is going to help the vase life tremendously. So I'm going to just put one hydrangea in my arrangement. And I'm going to start by placing it off center. It's such a big bloom that I don't want it to be right in the middle. That'll look strange. We're going to go for more of an asymmetrical design here. So I actually cut mine too long, so I'm going to trim it again. You can cut this pretty short. I'm going to cut a snip in the bottom. I'm going to dip it in my alum, and then I'm going to put it in the design off center. If you have a little bit of the stem flakes, you can trim that off. I'm going to put it off center over here to the side. And this is going to be the focal bloom of our arrangement. So everything that we do, we're going to work around the hydrangea.
I have a question for you, Ashley.
Yes.
How deep do I have to stick the stem into the foam?
That is a really, really great question. It needs to go in just far enough to where it's going to stay in place. It doesn't need to go, you don't need to push it all the way in to where it's hitting the other side of your container. You just want to push it in an inch or so, far enough to where it's surrounded on all sides by the foam and where it's going to stay in place. As we fill this up, it's going to get harder and harder to find a spot for the flowers to go because all of our stems are going to be crissing and crossing inside. So as long as you put it in and it stays, you should be fine. Okay, next I'm going to start by creating a base layer of greenery. So get your greenery. This is Italian ruscus. I'm going to trim this piece up to give me 3 pieces of greenery that I can use in this design. So when you have a stem of greenery like this, you want to cut it above where one of these little stems shoots off from the main stem. So I'm going to cut it right there, and now I've got a smaller piece, and I'm going to cut it right here, and now I've got a smaller piece, and I'm going to insert these in to the foam. You want to make sure that when you're putting them in, everything is coming up and out. You don't want it to go straight in until we get to filling in through the top. For these initial insertions, you want things to be up and out. So I'm just going to start by putting some greenery in first, and make sure that you're cutting at an angle. And we'll put in about 5 or 6 pieces. So our hydrangea, or whatever focal bloom you have, initially we want to start with this large bloom as our lowest point. And then everything else we put in is going to create an asymmetrical design with height over here. So I'm starting to create some volume on this side to offset this large bulky hydrangea over here. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to the roses, which is my secondary bloom here. And these are the next largest flower that are going to go into the arrangement. So the first flower that I'm going to put in is going to be the high point. So I'm going to trim it about here. Keep it longer rather than shorter for your first flower to go in. You can always make it shorter, but you cannot make it longer. And I want this to kind of start to create a triangle over here. If you think 1, 2, and then our next insertion is going to be down here in the front. But that's going to be my high point. And then I'm going to go in kind of medium and put this guy here in front. Okay. So you can see that we've started to create some asymmetry. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to put another medium height over here. Don't neglect the back of your arrangement unless you know it's going somewhere where it'll be facing a wall or won't be seen. If that's the case, you don't have to fill in the back. So,
I have another question for you.
yeah.
As you're placing the flowers in, what are you thinking of when you're determining the position, the height, the location? Is there any trick to like making sure that you're getting the best arrangement as you're placing them, like the most appealing?
So with a design like this that's asymmetrical and kind of garden style, which is a trend in floral design right now, we're going for asymmetry. So we're going for low to high. And then we think in terms of threes or triangles. So from the front face of this, we have if you can see this, it's kind of hard to picture the triangle, but if you can see the triangle that we've made. And we did the same in the back. So as long as you stick to numbers of 3 and think about creating triangles through your design, you're going to be able to pull off something that's asymmetrical and it's visually appealing. You want to make sure, and as we start to fill this in, it'll become more clear, but you want to make sure that you don't have anything like that's right next to each other. And then you also want to make sure that when you're putting things into the arrangement, everything's going in at a different level. You don't want all of your flowers to be on the same plane. That will create like a ball of an arrangement. And it's just not as visually pleasing as things that have movement. And when you put things in at different levels, it helps your eye move through the design a lot more easily. And it's just more visually pleasing. Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you very much. Because I know I've created some, like tried to do flowers and stuff before, but I think I kind of cut everything to similar heights and I thought I needed to make it symmetrical. And in doing that, it really didn't look that good. It looked kind of like you said, like a ball of flowers instead of a nice arrangement.
You buy something from the store, you know, a bouquet of flowers, and it comes like this. Everything's the same height. People just trim it at the same, all the flowers at the same length and stick them in a vase, and there's not any movement. There's not any interest. So when you start layering things, that's when it becomes really beautiful and interesting.
Yeah, that is exactly what I used to do. But
yeah, everybody does it.
So I'd like to encourage all of our participants here, if you do have any questions, please be sure to click on the bottom center of the screen and the chat button, and it'll pull up a chat window and you can ask your questions there, and I'll be sure to unmute you so you can ask Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, so next I'm going to start by kind of filling in some of my holes. So I'm going to start with the spray rose, which is a filler flower. Your filler flowers from your grocery store bouquets could be alstroemeria, chrysanthemum sprays like cushion palms or daisies, something like that. So we want to start filling in some of these gaps. So you just want to look at it and see where could use some interest. So I've got a pretty big gap right here. So I'm going to put my spray roses to fill in that gap. And push them in. The beauty of foam is it really allows you to put something in and have it stay where you placed it, as opposed to just sticking things in a vase with no sort of structure. World design, we call this our mechanics, are the base for which we create a design. It just kind of flops everywhere, and this foam really gives us control over where these flowers go. So in the back, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to put this in low. And then as I turn it around, you want to focus on everything kind of up and out. You don't want anything to be dead center. This next one, I stuck these spray roses down low. And then I need something back here that's high. So let's put these guys back there. Okay, so you can see it's starting to fill in. Next, I'm going to put in another filler, my wax flower. These are tiny little delicate blooms that branch off of the same main stem. So you can either trim this and put this in as one stem, or you can trim off all of these little stems that shoot off of the main stem. And now we've got 4 pieces instead of 1. So I'm going to kind of start accenting these around through the bottom because these are short since I trimmed them. And you just keep turning it. You just think of it as sprinkling these flowers throughout. You can see it starting to fill in and look nice. And another thing I'll mention, if you leave your email address in the chat section, we are going to draw somebody at random to win a toolkit, a floral toolkit. So that's a fun little giveaway. Okay, I'll turn this around for you. That wax flower is starting to give us a lot of really nice texture. You can see it's real dark down here. That's a hole that needs something. So I'm gonna add a little bit more down there. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with more greenery. I'm gonna start with this baby blue eucalyptus. I love baby blue eucalyptus. It's really fragrant though, so if you have an aversion to the smell of eucalyptus, you probably want to steer clear of this. But I just trimmed the stem and then I ripped off the leaves on the bottom so that it allows me to put this in. And this is a long linear stem, so I'm going to use this to help accent my asymmetrical line over here. It's going to go in at the same angle as this rose to kind of help define that height over there. And then I'm going to use this one low over here with my hydrangea to give us some, see this triangle that we're working with? I'm kind of in the way. It might be easier to see if I get out of the way. Here we go.
I have another question for you. Is the blue eucalyptus another item that you can buy just at regular grocery stores?
Yes, I know I've seen it with the greenery bundles at HEB. It's baby blue eucalyptus. And then another variety of eucalyptus we have here, this is called silver dollar eucalyptus. It's important when you're selecting greenery to use materials that are different colors and different textures. That keeps things interesting. So I'm going to snip off some of this silver dollar and sprinkle this throughout also. Put some through the top. We want this just to look very organic and natural, like it's growing out of a garden. You see this to start taking shape. Go in and fill in through the back. Okay, I like the way this is turning out. This is my front here. I'm gonna add one more rose. I think it could use something right here. So I'm gonna put one more in here, right there. Okay. I also wanted to show you greenery. A lot of times you can find greenery growing in your yard or in your neighborhood. This is something that we use a lot in wedding work, but it works in irregular arrangements also. If you can see, this is a huge tree of smilax, and this grows wild here in Bourbon County, which I think it probably grows everywhere around here. But if I were just to go outside and trim up some of this, you can find this growing just around. Asparagus fern is something else that a lot of people have in their yards, and you would just trim stems like this, and you can use them to accent your arrangement. So you don't have to purchase some of this greenery. You can just find it growing wild. And if you want to vase test it before you put it in something that you're going to give to somebody, or you would just trim it from the shrub and stick it in a vase of water and see how it does before you put it in an actual design. So there we go. That is my finished hydrangea arrangement. And I think the most important thing to note is that this big bulky flower, remember to keep it off center, and that we're building the depth over here with our other materials while still using a big bulky flower like hydrangea. And I haven't done this in the other workshops, but I wanted to show you one other thing. I know a lot of people have questions about what flowers are in season when, and what color flowers can I find if I'm doing something themed where I need blue or yellow or burgundy. And this is a book that we use all the time. We love this book. You can buy it on Amazon. I think I bought it on Amazon, but it's called the Flower Color Guide by Putnam and Putnam, which is a world-renowned florist in New York City. And they put together this flower color guide that talks about flowers arranged. It's set up by color. So when you flip through it, these are red flowers, and it shows you photos of the stem, and it tells you the actual color of the flower. Like these are cosmos, and they're dark red, and they're available in summer and fall. So this is a really neat book. If you don't know a lot about flowers and don't know the names of flowers, you can browse through this, and it'll tell you what's available and when it's available in the various color palettes that you might want to use. So this is a great resource. So
I do have another question for you.
yes.
I wanted to know, what are are there any do's or do nots, like mistakes that beginners make when they're starting to make their own flower arrangements? What are some common things that people usually just by habit or something would do wrong?
That's a great question. I think not, well, and it depends on the type of design that you're going for, but not building some sort of structure in your vessel. So for us today, we used foam to give us some structure when we were putting our flowers in the vessel. Another thing that you can use to give you structure is chicken wire. And I'm gonna pop this. What's beautiful about this is you can just pull that out and stick it over here. Chicken wire, you can create a ball like this and stick it in your vase. And that way you have an armature for your flower stems to be held up. You can also use waterproof floral tape to build a grid across the top of your vase. So you would just tape it off going this way and then tape it off going this way, and you have a place for your stems to be held up. That's probably number one, because people will just throw things in the vase and it falls everywhere. Another mistake that people make is not using a variety of sizes of flowers and greens. So you want to make sure that you select at least 3 types of flowers that are different shapes and sizes. So we have our rose, we have our spray rose, which are tiny, multiple blooms per stem. We used 4 today, but we have wax flower, and then we have our large hydrangea. And then the question that you asked earlier, making sure that everything goes in at different levels. You want to think in terms of your design coming out as opposed to straight up, and you want to push all of your elements in at different heights to give some dimension to the arrangement. So we have had a lot of fun designing flower arrangements for this year's show, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Our website is thetallesttulip.com, and we do wedding and event floral design, and we have a small retail division for individual arrangements here in Sugar Land, Missouri City. And then we also put on workshops. So check us out. You can follow us on Instagram at thetallesttulip.com to see what we're up to. Our email address for any flower questions is info@thetallesttulip.com. We love flower questions. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time with anything that you may want to know about flowers. And we're doing, again, if you want to put your email in the chat section, we're doing a giveaway. We're going to select somebody at random to win our toolkit. So we have a Tallest Tulip floral design toolkit that comes with our signature vase, which these 2 vases are the vases that we use for all of our designs. A pair of clippers, some chicken wire, some floral foam, some waterproof tape, everything that you would need, some flower food to create arrangements at home. So make sure to leave your email, and we are going to draw for that as a freebie. And go to the store, buy some flowers, play with flowers, get way better at it the more you practice. And I hope you have fun. Happy flowering. Thank you.